Hello, and welcome to the Being Human podcast, where we explore what it means to be human, physically, mentally, and spiritually. We upload an episode of this podcast every single week, so whether you're new here or if you're returning and you have not yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That is the best way you can help support the podcast, and it also ensures you do not miss any of these episodes. On this episode of the podcast, I sat down with Imran Kahn of Transform Now. Imran Kahn is an exercise and sports performance physiologist and longevity researcher. He is also the head and founder of Transform Now, a private healthcare company helping athletes all over the UK and the world for that matter to achieve elite performance, and also helping everyday people improve their health. Imran and I actually recorded a conversation for the podcast a few weeks ago. We had a great conversation about health and fitness, in particular steroids and performance enhancing drugs. When I got home that evening, something happened that has never happened before in my short career as a podcaster. Imran messaged me and asked if we could redo the episode. The reason for this that he cited was that he was currently working on publishing new data, figures and statistics on steroids and performance enhancing drugs, and he wanted to share these with me and all of you for the first time on the podcast. Of course, the answer was yes. So yesterday, Imran and I sat down and re-recorded the episode with this new data, these new figures and statistics. Imran shared with us how many men in the UK are estimated to be taking steroids. He shared with us how many deaths in the UK occur that are related to steroid use. He shared what percentage of people actually have low testosterone. He shared how much steroids actually increase the risk of cardiac issues, prostate cancer, and infertility. Imran also shared his opinions on the morality of steroid and performance-enhancing drug use, both in and out of sports. This was a comprehensive conversation on steroids and performance-enhancing drugs with someone who is incredibly experienced, incredibly knowledgeable about the area. It is critical in this day and age, in this landscape that we find ourselves in, that we have proper education around steroids, around performance-enhancing drugs, and Imran and the whole Transform Now team are bringing this to us. So a massive thank you to Imran and everyone at Transform Now. If you would like to get in contact with Imran, if you would like to work with him, then you can do so by visiting transformnow.co.uk. So much information, so much knowledge and value shared in this episode. I do not doubt you will take away a great deal of value from it. If you do, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment below, share it around on social media as well. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting Being Human. The Being Human podcast is brought to you by Mr. Bassett's Grappler's Coffee. If you are a fighter or a grappler, this is the coffee you should be drinking. It is the most potent coffee I have ever drank in terms of its caffeination, but it is beautifully smooth. Grappler's Coffee gets me firing on all cylinders every day, supercharging me for my workouts, for my training, keeping my productivity sky high throughout the day. This is a game changer. All you need to do to pick up a bag of this is to go to mrbassets.com and use the code WAG10 for 10% off your order. That's WAG, all caps, 10 for 10% off your order. The Being Human podcast is brought to you by RA Optics. These are the best blue blocker glasses on the market. Most blue blocker glasses do not work. These do. Simple as that. Staring into a screen all day, staring into this phone, into this ring light that's currently blaring into my eyes, can cause eye strain, headaches, mood imbalances. These babies eliminate all of those. And many of you, I do not doubt, are unfortunately sitting behind a desk every day, staring into a screen. So get yourself some of these. Do your eyes, do your head, do your mood a favour. Head over to raoptics.com/waglele to get 10% off your order. That's WAGLELE, all caps, to get 10% off your order. And now presenting Being Human with Imran Kahn. So let's get straight into it.
Okay.
You want to start off with the history of anabolics?
Yes, I mean, so contrary to popular belief, the history has always been that the Russians or the Germans developed these things for sport performance. Virtually every anabolic steroid, from Winstrol to testosterone to Deca, the Oxys, Anavar, Primo, Masteron, growth hormone, and a whole host of peptides, they originally had a medical use. So, for example, it was like for anemia, bone disorders, muscle disorders, HIV in the 80s. Anavar was used extensively for HIV, it's used for burn patients. Now, another sort of misconception, these drugs are still registered as medicines with the FDA. they just got out of fashion. So to give you two examples, testosterone was originally patented virtually 100 years ago for depression and for soldiers who'd come back from World War One, and it was used for that. That was the original purpose of it, and or one of the purposes of it. So it was used quite extensively for men with low testosterone depression, especially post-war. Then it sort of just got out of fashion. It just disappeared.
Well, I'm guessing part of that was because when you're at war, your cortisol, your other stress hormones are sky high.
I mean, because the data from that time, there's not much research around which is available, but people had gone through this horrific experience in World War One, World War Two. There's nothing like it. I mean, no war today can compare to that. So young men had gone, and they'd come back, if they did come back, with these harrowing experiences in a state of stress, of various disorders. They'd seen brutal. I remember they came back, for example, on a Friday, and on Monday they were working as a brickie or a plumber or a milkman or something. There was no transitional period. So the Germans had patented it to use for depression and anxiety, and also to use for post-war soldiers. Now, it then sort of went out of fashion. It just disappeared for some reason. It's obviously also used for people with low testosterone or testicular damage. DECA, for example, decadurablin, in 2021, there were 4 prescriptions given in the UK. Only 4 in the entire. Only 4.
4 prescriptions for DECA.
Yeah, were issued in the entire UK. 4. Now, so the manufacturers are like, why should we bother keeping them available to the market? It's not that it doesn't work for osteopenia, for bone disorders, for anemia. It's a great drug for females. It works. It just became out of fashion. The argument being a better drug has been devised. So if you look at clenbuterol has been used for breathing disorders. Again, just became out of fashion. Primobolan, Masteron, these were all used for muscle disorders. Testosterone was used extensively for people with low testosterone, people who had testicular damage, who'd had cancer, who'd lost their testicles for whatever reason. So this is used. So with the American FDA now, of the top 33 anabolic steroids, 29 are still registered. So they're still legal drugs. They can still be manufactured legally and prescribed. The reason they're not, they're just actually out of fashion. The only one which has been taken off is Anaplon 50 because it caused serious health problems. But that was also original medical drug. So the history of these is going back a long time. So it wasn't like some mystical lab in Eastern Europe where they were making things and juicing up athletes. Yeah, of course they were. The Russians, even the Germans, Eastern Europeans, they were doing it. But so were the Americans. The best drugs have been made in America for several decades. Banco being one of them, the whole NFL saga, the baseball saga. The Americans have been way ahead of anybody else. The British aren't too bad either, to be honest. We're pretty good at it as well. So this has been around a long time. But the key point I wanted to make, that these drugs were not taken off on safety grounds. They were simply removed because nobody was prescribing them. Right. So if you went to a doctor today and said, look, I've read about decadurablin, it's actually in the BNF guide as an approved medicine. The doctor would say, well, I can't get hold of it. There's no manufacturing it.
So it's not because of safety reasons. It's fallen out of fashion.
It's just purely out of fashion. And the doctors, they believe there's better alternatives around. So even if decadurablin is highly effective for females, 50 milligrams every 2 weeks for bone density issues, for osteopenia, osteoarthritis, is highly effective. Increases red blood cells. Again, it's great for this, maintaining a bit of muscle. People think it lubricates the joints. It doesn't. It sort of puts more fluid in the joints. But it's just become out of fashion. So on 4 prescriptions, there's no point anybody prescribing it. Proviron is another one. Very sort of low-grade steroid, if you like, very cheap. You can buy it on the black market for 10, 15 quid. On prescription is about £170.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Do you think part of the reason why there was only 4 prescriptions for something like DECA is because most of it's happening underground in black markets?
I think there's some of it is to do with that, but you have to remember, if you take bodybuilding, let's say it's 1% of the population, it's not even that. 99% of the population wouldn't know who they are,
Mm.
but the doctors don't know about it, even though it's in the BNF guide, which I'll show you downstairs. It's actually in the BNF guide as a prescribable
What's
drug.
BNF? Sorry.
It's the pharmaceutical guide of the medicines in the UK.
Okay.
So it tells you what medicines are approved and what medicines aren't approved and what doses. So if you ever go to a prescriber, they can flick through it and they'll go to like, okay, you've got a pain, this is the medicine, this is the dose, this is the contradictions of it, and these are the side effects, this is how it works. So it's actually in those. Stanozol is still in there. It's had 0 prescriptions for 4 years. Now, Proviron had 1 prescription in 2022, the entire UK 1 prescription. So now it's been taken off. There is no point in manufacturer making it for 1 prescription. Whereas if you look in the 70s or 80s, they were considerably higher. So they just became out of fashion, if you like.
Okay.
Which is, interesting. The view being generally that they're not safe, and that's why they were taken out. No, they weren't. They're still legally available on prescription. On a private prescription, we can do it. On a compounding prescription, we can do it. We can actually get a compounder to make it for you legally. It's still an unapproved drug. It hasn't been disproved. It's not been taken off the list. It's not banned. However, to manufacture a steroid without a pharmaceutical license, without all the safeguards, and that then becomes illegal. It becomes a class 3 drug.
So as you highlighted there, all of these steroids from testosterone to Deca, Winstrol, they all originated medically with therapeutic functions.
Absolutely, yeah.
And most of those, I'm guessing, it sounds like were in the first half of the 20th century,
yeah,
right?
I mean, look, up to the Anavar, Winstrol was extensively used for HIV patients. Up to around about 2010.
Yeah.
The Anavar cream is still used for burns to help heal the muscle. That's still used. In America, I think last year, Anavar has been taken off by a pharmaceutical company. But these were up to about 10, 15 years ago. Most of these things were available on prescription.
Okay. My question was going to be, at what point did people start realizing, hang on, these drugs that are being used for therapeutic functions, we can actually take them into sports to enhance our performance?
If you look around about the sort of 50s, 60s, this is when it became popular. So do you remember the movie Pumping Iron?
Yeah.
On the classic.
Yeah, Schwarzenegger's movie.
Movie. So just around about 8 to 10 years before that, steroids became very popular in strength sport and bodybuilding. So there's a guy called Dan Duchaney who wrote a book back in the day. He's like the godfather of steroids, if you like. So he'd written a book, and it was like an underground magazine based in California, which was telling people how to take different drugs. When you read some of that now, it's actually hilarious, and it's got this. It's got quite a collector's value to it now. The original book. And some of the cycles they were doing, people just experimenting all the time. They were just taking this. So the physiques changed considerably. So if you look at the Mr. Universe in the 50s, then look at it in the 70s, the physiques are totally different. So Sean Connery had entered the Mr. Universe show.
That's exactly who came to mind.
Yeah.
When you said about the 50s, I thought
Now
people that had a physique like Sean Connery.
Yeah, so people are like relatively normal. I mean, they're actually fairly normal. So if you look at some of the Steve Reeves, some of the old actors, Robert Mitchum, Tony Curtis, they actually had fairly decent physiques. So they were the Rambos of their era. But this was all without gear. Then as it came along, we've seen from the 70s to 80s. So if you take, not that I'm accusing Sylvester Stallone of taking anything, his milk and protein powder, but if you look at his changes from Rocky 1.
From Rocky 2 to Rocky 3.
Yeah. I mean, Rocky 3, he's got the greatest physique.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. He has, I mean, and Rambo, I mean, he's just shredded.
Yeah.
What a physique he's got. Now, that wasn't protein powder, allegedly, but you saw how then you had Dolph, Big Dolph, you had all the actors, that look started coming along, and then it just became socially acceptable. It's considered by the authorities to still be, and again, my data shows this, the study which I've done, it's considered, number one, cheating. Number two, it's considered people feel guilty or a moral conflict of taking them. They don't. Not at all, they don't. People love it if they're taken safely. So the data is indicating, in fact, people don't see themselves as being a part of a cult. By here, I'm not talking about bodybuilding, I'm talking about the wellness people who are taking a little bit to look good or to be healthier, a small physique change, nothing significant. They don't feel any guilt about it. They don't see it as cheating. They don't see it as morally wrong. And they don't see it as any ethical issue because they're not competing in a drug-tested competition, which then leads on to the growing trend now of more and more competitions not being drug-tested. So we can see this in jiu-jitsu, we see it in CrossFit, we see it in High Rocks, we see it in the various boxing promotions, we see it within the MMA promotions. So people just aren't being drug-tested. So in one sense, you'd be dumb not to take something when everyone else has got a massive advantage over you.
So let's outline, before we go into side effects, the dangers, let's get it out there on a basic level, the benefits of taking different performance-enhancing drugs. Testosterone.
It's estimated in the UK, the authorities estimate around about 1 million people take it in the UK.
1 million people in the UK take
steroids or testosterone.
Really?
Yeah, that figure, I would put it about to 2. My data shows the exact opposite. It's about 2 million.
2 million?
And growing, rapidly
and the population of the UK is...
Well, look, what you have to do, this is what we've worked out. If you've got an 80 million population, give or take,
yeah,
that sort of figure, let's say for the sake of argument, 40 million women, okay, give or take out the old, take out the young, and you might be left with 20 million of men of a certain demographic. Within that, my estimate is 10% are taking something. Okay. Which is fucking significant.
That's incredibly significant. 1 in 10 men between the age of 18 and
are taking something,
60,
which is non-prescription.
Wow. Okay. Well, how many do you think of that 2 million are older people, like people in their 60s?
In fact, the exact opposite.
Really?
Most people taking are less than 40.
Okay. So
there's a big myth about TRT as well. There's a huge myth. It's believed it's 1 in 4 people. In fact, it's not. Now I'm in the testosterone business, so I'm telling you, it is not 1 in 4 people
that have low testosterone.
Yeah, it's absolute rubbish. It's not correct at all.
It's higher or lower?
I would say probably studies show between 1 in 22 to 1 in 70.
1 in 22 to 1 in 70 people have low testosterone, but 1 in 10 people, males between 18 and 40 roughly,
if you go to the average gym, you go to an average gym, how many people do you see allegedly taking something or another? It's a lot, isn't it? When I was younger, you didn't see hench guys walking around.
No.
It was very rare. You see them everywhere now.
Yeah.
You see people's physiques. I mean, they called it one of the psychologists called it the Love Island syndrome.
Yeah.
You've got the big butt. Everyone is big, ripped, lean, strong. You've got a certain look, which one of the social commentators called it like the Adonis complex. You've got this sort of big guy, like a male anorexia, or a body dysmorphia, where you've got to be taking something.
Yeah, it's the equivalent, right? Yeah. Girls now are getting lip fillers, and it's not just, before it would have been makeup, but now it's lip fillers, cheek fillers.
Yeah, I mean, the whole aesthetic. So the guys now, one of the fastest growing businesses is male aesthetics, male liposuction, calf implants, bicep implants, pec implants. So why even fucking train? You can just, we live in a pay-as-you-go society. You pay, you get the look you want. So we've got to differentiate now here between bodybuilding, powerlifting, strength sports, and then normal people in brackets. The normal people would be you or I. With the doses taken by one batch are considerably higher than the batch who are taking it for wellness or for health optimization or just to be better or to have low testosterone. The low testosterone debate is also highly controversial. Do you have does testosterone affect libido? Actually, it may not.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I'll give you 2 examples of this. Now, I'm obviously married, so libido's finished anyway. I mean, like, that's just all gone. But if you were to, you go home and you've got a nightmare at home, without being a misogynist, you just don't get on with your wife. Doesn't matter what your testosterone levels are, nothing's really going to go off. So with a lot of men, these factors have to be looked at. So you may have high testosterone and still have, for example, ED, erectile dysfunction. So how do you explain this? You could have low testosterone and still be fully functioning sexually. So the argument of testosterone and sexuality, that really has to be put to a side. It's a bigger picture of appetite, sleep, feeling down, anxiety, losing muscle, just losing your oomph, not just feeling strong. That's probably what should be 90% of TRT patients. Libido should be based at 10%. So these adverts you see, different companies, without naming the companies, there's one ridiculous advert, like some homeless, it looks like a homeless guy, another guy's coming out with jeans at his bed, or, he's the worst advert for testosterone. Anyway, it looks terrible there. So it's been marketed as this thing like it's great for your libido. It says testosterone isn't for everybody. 1 in 10 people, once they start testosterone, it gives them the side effects: oily skin, complete acne, hair dropping out, can give them gynecomastia, sort of inflammation of the nipples, can make your testicles hurt.
And that's 1 in 10
roughly
are going to
in my
experience those side effects.
Sort of experience, about 1 in 10.
Okay.
Because we've conducted a survey of 1,900 people on testosterone, 193 people, they went off it. It wasn't for them. They were better off than they were before. Okay, so that 10% factor has to be catered for. It's not the panacea. It's not this Pandora's box of wellness. It doesn't work that way. You still have to eat well. Exercise has less to do with it. We still have to eat well. You still have to be functioning. So let's just take a guy who drives a truck, 12 hours a day he's driving a truck. He's sleeping in his truck, he's eating. His lifestyle isn't conducive for testosterone production. So other factors have to be looked at. Vasodilation, if you're on a blood pressure medication, it's going to affect your libido. So all of these factors have to be taken into consideration before you prescribe. And you can't just sort of willy-nilly just start giving people testosterone. It has to be looked at. Are the vitamins okay? What is the vitamin D? What is their B vitamins? Are these fine? What is their folic acid? All of these things are instrumental in testosterone production. What is their food like? So, for example, people constantly on these 3-day fasts, the data, and without getting into arguments with people, the data is showing that they have low testosterone.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, that when you fast, whether it's a prolonged fast like 3-day fasting or 24-hour fasting, or even if you have a fasting window each day where you eat in an 8-hour window, fast for the remainder of the day, or eat in a 6-hour window, when they actually examine that over a 10-12 week period, people have a small but noticeable drop in testosterone.
2 nanomoles is enough. Is the difference between you feeling good and feeling bad.
Okay.
It's only 2, but it's extremely different. So with the whole fasting argument, if you eat, for example, at 8 o'clock at night, and you get up in the morning, and you have breakfast at 8 for the sake of argument, you've already gone through a 12-hour fast. So a lot of people, if you have breakfast at 10, or you have your first meal at 1 o'clock, you've actually done one. So this 3-day fasting thing, to me, doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
In your opinion, does it have any health benefits?
No, it does have health benefits, because I think we all eat more than we need to eat. That's the key thing. We eat more than we need to eat.
Caloric restriction purposes.
Yeah. So that's the benefit for it. Yes, we have a process where your cells regenerate, it gives your organ the rest. I get all of this. But if I'm lucky enough to be sitting in an office all day, if I was bricklaying for 12 hours a day or digging a hole, I'm not fucking fasting for 3 days, am I? I mean, you've got to put it in perspective. If we did a study in Canada. The place was called Halifax, and these guys are chopping wood. They're real, genuine lumberjacks with axes and saws, dense forests. And in the morning, they would have bread, butter, steak, tea, a beer. During the day, lunch, they'd have bread, butter, steak, a few beers, and in the evening, bread, butter, steak, and it's hard manual work. And the guys' lats, back, shoulders, they're phenomenal. And they were literally chopping for 8 to 10 hours a day in all weathers, and then having a break. They'd be having this normal, was having lunch, a half an hour break, and then back to chopping and sewing. None of them had low testosterone. Not a single, 14 of these, not one of them had low testosterone. So does that mean that physical work? So if we think of a 24-hour day, this is the whole thing of training and exercise. It actually gets quite ridiculous. You train, let's say, for an hour in a 24-hour period. Compare that to someone who does manual work for 12 hours. So is there an argument that your body's forced to make more testosterone when you need it because of the work you do? Because why are the sedentary people have lower testosterone than physical people? Now, it could be just a natural correlation, or it could be that your body's forced to make more testosterone than the food we eat, than our sleeping pattern. Sleeping is crucial for it. So if you look at some other data, people who had low testosterone and had sleeping issues, once they had a sleep apnea machine, their testosterone rose. They didn't need exogenous testosterone. And the point I'm trying to get at, we're getting very quick now at prescribing testosterone very rapidly. You want it? Yeah, sure, have it. I don't really want it. What do you think? No, I'll just try it. We're giving it out completely, whereas maybe underlying factors for low testosterone.
So we're not looking at what's caused the low testosterone, which is lifestyle.
Yeah. Now, what we do know that people above 50 have a higher chance of atrial fibrillation, irregular heartbeat, rapid heartbeat, who take testosterone than people who don't. So even for TRT, there can be side effects. There's a 1% higher chance of having a prostate cancer. It's only 1%.
Okay. If you take TRT, you have a 1% chance higher.
A higher
chance.
Only
1%. 1% chance higher of.
Yeah. Now,
is that going to vary with some people depending on genetics? I'm guessing.
Ethnicity. So black people have a higher chance of getting prostate cancer anyway than people who are overweight. Other factors as well. I mean, there's other factors. So if you look at cyclists, those razor blade type of seats.
Yeah, I've heard about that before.
They can get bruised prostates, which can cause other problems, prostatitis, certain infections. So testosterone isn't necessarily always the answer to it. There may be other. It should be the last resort, not the first resort. Because once you do start testosterone, you're effectively on it for life. You know, it's a long-term commitment.
Okay, let's talk about that. You take TRT. You just said you're effectively on it for life. How easy is it to come off TRT?
There's two things. There's a physical aspect and there's a physiological aspect to it. Psychological aspect to it. So if your levels are at 7 and now you've been boosted up to 25, you feel great. You're training, you're looking better, you're healthier, or you feel healthier. Why would you come back off that to go back down to 8 or lower? So when you're taking anything exogenous, your body doesn't need to produce its own testosterone, so it effectively goes into a shutdown. So we try to minimize that by using other drugs, HCG with it, to try for the body to get a shutdown. But if you've been used to elevated levels, it's going to be very hard psychologically to drop down. Then it may affect, in some people, it may affect their cholesterol, their lipid profile. It may cause them to have idiopathic polycythemia, which is higher blood red cells. It may cause them to have acne, oily skin, may cause some hair to drop out. So for some people, they have to come off it. They will come off it because it doesn't suit them. And then you have to try to bring their levels back. Or different protocols are used, lower doses, a daily dose, microdosing a daily dose, maybe gel. There's other protocols that are used. But physically now, if you're feeling better and stronger and you've got that oomph back, it's going to be very hard for you to go off it.
That's it. Psychologically, yeah. I always think of it from an athletic perspective. When you undergo a certain level of preparation for your events, no matter what it is, whether it's supplements you're taking, how much you're training, how locked in you are with diet and sleep, the only way to go from that then is up. Because if you go down in terms of your level of preparation for the next event, psychologically you're thinking, I'm not as prepared. Yeah. So if you get 9 hours sleep for 12 weeks leading up to a fight, perform well, regardless of how you perform, you do that. For your next fight, you're sleeping 6 hours a day, 12 weeks. It's going to be in the back of your mind.
Well, look,
I was better
law,
rested.
Yeah, the law of nature, what goes up has to come down.
Mm.
And the laws of optimization and longevity are exactly the same. We cannot maintain you. We've got to be realistic. We can't maintain you at this peak level forever. It can't be. Nobody can be performing at a peak level 365 days a year.
No.
It's a complete myth. This is why you have to have breaks in between. So what we believe and what we say and what we do are three different things here. The data doesn't lie. You know, when you look at smart athletes, they take breaks in between. A week of training, they'll pig out for a while, they'll enjoy themselves to give your body a rest as well from constantly competing. Testosterone, if you had low testosterone and you start taking testosterone, very quickly you forget what it was like to have low testosterone.
So when you're healthy, it's hard to imagine being ill.
Yeah.
When you're ill, it's hard to imagine being healthy.
Absolutely. So when you're taking testosterone now, you think, okay, it's going to get better and better and better, which it can't. So if you're taking 100 milligrams a week of testosterone, 1,000 hg a week, by taking 300, you're not necessarily going to feel any better, or by taking 600 mg or a gram, it doesn't actually make any difference. That 100 is optimal for you, and this is the problem in bodybuilding as such, because to have the look they have, you have to take high doses. There's no choice for any bodybuilder to say, look, I've got my look on a TRT dose. It's absolute rubbish. It's complete rubbish.
Well, that's it. It's not testosterone replacement therapy, is it? It's testosterone enhancement therapy.
Or abuse. It depends which way you look at it. I mean, to be walking around at 150 kg, for example, and taking 3 grams a week of hormones, it's not true. But that is the game. So this is I don't knock it at all. That's the game you're in, and that's what you have to do, and that's what you have to do. You know, there's no ifs and buts on this, for example, and it's not cheating because everybody's doing it. Now, if you have a drug-tested event, and somebody, because we do tests for events as well, and somebody is now taking a drug, that's what's morally wrong, that you've entered a drug-tested event, and you took a drug, whereas everybody else hasn't. The argument is that they were just better manipulating it. That's another bullshit argument. This argument, you can bypass a drug test or you can fiddle with things. It's a pretty dumb argument.
Really? You don't think people can work around drug tests?
You can, but I mean, if they turn up at your house today for a random drug test, it's very hard. So it's not. People can manipulate drug testing. It can be done if you know what the schedule is. You've got fast esters, you've got water-based testosterone, etc. But it's not as people think.
Okay.
It's not as easy as people think. I mean, this myth of apple juice and antibiotics is just a myth.
I listened to, I think it was, are you familiar with Derek, More Plates, More Dates? Yeah. He was on, I think it was Joe Rogan a couple of years ago, and he had this theory that testosterone, correct me if I'm wrong, it's derived from soy, ironically, because people say soy can contribute to giving you low testosterone, but synthetic testosterone is made from soy. So when they test for it, they're using a product or a method of testing that is basically searching for something made from soy. And he was hypothesizing that people are figuring out how to make testosterone from animal products, basically.
It's just bullshit.
Yeah, you think that's bullshit?
Complete bullshit.
Okay.
You're looking at the metabolites, and it's bullshit.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I've seen a drug test, for example, where the guy took DECA 7 months prior, but some tiny metabolite was in there. And basically, the metal is going to your fat and excreted through your kidneys slowly. So if you take weed or you smoke certain other drugs or you live a certain lifestyle, so this guy made weight. He made weight, and a little drop or a microgram or a picogram, whatever, essentially went to the urine because he was dehydrated. So it's come through the fat into the urine. And he was tested positive. So that these things are just myths. What people will do is, it's an off season. They're not competing, and they're not being drug tested until say March. So up 6 weeks before, they're still taking things. So you've took the advantage of the off season, and now you're just basically it's all out of your system. You pass a drug test. So that's how people can do it. To actually manipulate a genuine blood test or a urine test isn't that easy.
Okay.
It's not that easy. I mean, the testing is fundamentally flawed, especially in this country. It's shit. But once that sample's given, it's quite hard to manipulate.
To circle back to risks, dangers, side effects. So with TRT, 1% increase across the board on average in prostate cancer risk. What about for cardiac events, heart attack, stroke, and fertility issues?
Now, if you have low testosterone, it's actually bad for your cardiac health because the heart's also a muscle; it weakens the muscle. There's a fine line between the dose. So nobody between 75 to 125 milligrams a week is a pretty much maximum dose of actual TRT. No one should be doing more than that.
So for true TRT,
for pure TRT in the purest form. So, for example, when you have these bodybuilders saying, "Oh, look, I'm on actors, I'm on TRT, I'm on 300 mg of test, 200 primo, a bit of anavar," it's a cycle. It's not TRT. So that's just a lie. So
TRT 75 to 125 milligrams.
I don't imagine anybody needs more than 125 a week. Okay, except some very rare situation. Within the British Guide of Sexual Medicine and the BNF, the dose is 250 milligrams up to one shot in 3 weeks. So roughly, again, you're looking at 75, 80, 90 sort of one mark. And so depending on the type of drug, you could microdose it every day, subcut into your stomach or anywhere else, even intramuscularly if you want, and you simply just take a trickle dose every day to keep you elevated. This is not a sports performance dose. This is purely to bring your levels back up to normal. For whatever reason, your levels have gone down. Now, for example, if somebody's taking prednisolone long term, prednisolone is a fantastic drug. It works amazingly well as anti-inflammatory. However, it will damage your bones, your hormones, your testosterone. It will ruin you long term. It will kill you. Some people, unfortunately, have no choice. They have to take it. There's nothing else they can do. For those people, testosterone, because it diminishes, the medicine will diminish their testosterone. For those people, a small top-up helps. People taking other medication, these small top-ups helps. Now, the doses are extensively abused by people, so it's not pure TRT. The other thing, which is what testosterone can do, it can lower your HDL and increase your overall cholesterol. So that's why the person has to be monitored with regular blood tests. If you're above a certain age, we have to have an MRI or a heart CT scan or an echo. We're not going to work with you otherwise. And most reputable clinics are like this. Because the key priority is to keep the person safe, to feel better and be safe. So somebody could be prone to a heart attack regardless. But by taking the testosterone, it might increase their chances of 1%, 2%. Now, we do know in the latest study that atrial fibrillation, AF, and lowering of EGFR for long-term testosterone use, it is present within data. But we'd have to look at those individual cases where they steroid abusers before, because most guys who took steroids for more than 10 years will shut themselves down. They will have to take TRT for the rest of their life. There's no issue with that. They will have to do that. Now, acne is a side effect. Oily skin is a side effect. Possibly hair dropping, elevated blood pressure. That's possible. And the other one was fertility. By taking testosterone, you may temporarily reduce your fertility. So if you had low fertility in the first place, you'll be lower. If your fertility was high, it may be a little bit less because testosterone will shut down the LH and the FSH, the luteinizing hormone, the follicle stimulating hormone, which are involved in semen production, so you would have less. And this is why when people come off cycle, well, the new trend now amongst bodybuilders is to actually freeze their sperm. And so currently there's 1,456 cases at a particular hospital, which I won't name, of men who took steroids and they've now got infertility issues. So it's real. It's not a myth, it's real.
Okay. So, I mean, like, do we have any kind of hard figure on it, or like roughly what is the risk?
Well, just one hard. I would put this down at, because look, in a particular hospital, they have 1,456 men under 30 undergoing fertility treatment. So it's quite significant.
Significant risk.
Yeah.
And are these people, how many of these people are true TRT patients versus people
None.
that have abused?
None.
Okay, so when it comes to TRT, you're not so much looking at a risk of
No, because TRT is for older
infertility.
guys.
Yeah.
It's for older men. And again, let's be realistic, completely realistic. If you were to get, I'm an older guy, I don't need TRT. So it's this pressure, there's a social pressure. I mean, there's guys your age who are coming to, I need TRT. There's 20-year-olds, I mean, somebody messaged me yesterday, got a shoulder pain. Do you think TRT would help? Well, why? So I said, I've got a fucking headache and I need TRT. What's that going to do with anything? So we've got this massive, the podcast, the adverts, the thousands of, I mean, in America, they've took about 200 pages off now of these guys saying, I'm on TRT, I take this, I take these. They're taking the pages off, unregulated people, telling people on testosterone. It's because the Wild West out there. Now, it's estimated of 100 men who come in for a blood test, from the data, only 22 will need TRT. There's other factors that will be taken into account.
Right.
So I do think that the level of TRT is exaggerated. I also think there's a massive social pressure now to be taking something. There's a huge social pressure. And I think that's probably accelerates the illegal underground use. And the sheer cost of TRT. TRT is not cheap. Pharmaceutical testosterone isn't cheap. It encourages people to go underground, which is completely, I understand that.
Okay.
You know, if you're buying a vial on prescription for £300 and you can get it from Thailand for 30 quid, you'd be stupid not to.
Right. So for like the average person wanting to undergo, let's start off with true TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, legitimately, not underground. How much is that going to cost them per month for the TRT?
You're looking at around about
tests?
£2,000 to £3,000 a year if you want to do it safely.
If you want to do it safely,
Yeah.
everything involved, $2,000 to $3,000.
Blood tests, health checks, monitoring, the drugs involved, everything. You're looking at $2,000 to $3,000, which is, you know what?
That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
Right now, on a VIP protocol, that's £25,000. If you were to just take testosterone, not bother with any health check, you can do it for £200 a year underground.
Yeah.
But that's why people get ill.
So a tenth of the cost.
Yeah, that's why people get ill. This is why there are so many forums and discussions, and so many people. I mean, somebody's died very recently, unfortunately, a big advocate of this, and his own cycle ended up killing him. So, you know, it is a cost. It should only be used or given when somebody needs it. When they want it as a lifestyle thing, it's a different perspective altogether. If somebody say, look, I'm 45, got my kids now, I'm not really bothered, I want to look good, I want to look good for work or for my missus or whatever, or boyfriend, I want to look good for him. What do you do? He's going to do it. Of course he will. There's a huge social pressure now. It's massive. So not only on the young and the older guys, and that midlife crisis is real. I went out and bought a fucking Harley. It is completely real. And I'm already banned. I mean, it's completely real, that midlife crisis is. And the worst loser is that guy, roughly my age, who goes, gets a new dolly bird, takes a bit of testosterone, a bit of growth hormone, a girl at 22, because you know what's going to happen there. And many greater men have fell for that. It's so these are those, you know, within anthropology, there's sort of 3 ages for men, which are quite critical. The 14 to 17 age, because if you screw up at that age, you may not be able to recover. The sort of mid-30s, because it can be massive life-changing decisions at that stage, and the sort of 50-ish age. Because as we are on our decline, I mean, for me to say I'm at my peak, of course I'm not. There's only one way, is going down, and maybe a rapid decline. You've lived more of your life than you're going to, but then you've worked, you've got a bit of money, you can afford to do these things, you've seen it, been there, done it. Hey, I want my last burst, and that burst may be the last one. So this is quite critical. It's not like a tongue in cheek. It's actually quite important because the psychological processing is that you see these guys at 50 and 60 looking amazing. This is what people are looking at, thinking like, fuck, I want to look like this guy. It may not be for you. Then you've all got these adverts now. This like 50-year-old guy in his Ferrari with a blonde in his car going to a casino. Mate, your car's gone and she's gone. You can't do that stuff. So this is all part of this marketing. It's like this crescendo of a peak of you've got to be doing something.
Chasing the dragon.
Yeah, because you're not, you're dysfunctional. You're not normal then. It's not right. You've got to be trying to be this optimized dude. That guy who wants to live forever, who spends all that money on supplements, etc., and whatever. He just doesn't look healthy at all. So this then leads on to the whole longevity argument of peptides, of growth hormone, of different interventions to keep you healthy. It comes back. The baseline is always the hormones. So it's a real tricky one because, let's say in the last 4 years, TRT has gone popular. Let's see the data 20 years from now. Because some of the data we have, it doesn't. 1 in 10 people, it doesn't suit. It just doesn't suit them. After 9 months, 11% of people decide that they don't want testosterone.
Okay.
So it's between 11 and 14%. They don't want it. The acne, the oily skin, the emotional ups and downs, it doesn't suit them.
So 1 in 10 people taking exogenous testosterone are going to experience side effects. 1% increased risk in prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to cardiac events, cardiac health, and fertility, it's significant.
A 3-time higher chance of AF. That's why it has to be monitored.
Irregular heartbeat.
Yeah, that has to be monitored. That's a fact. I mean, the advocates of this will, and I'm an advocate of it, they deny these figures, but they're true. They are true. Higher blood pressure, thicker blood, possibly, estrogen imbalances. All of these things are real risks.
And a real risk of infertility, fertility problems.
Yes, there is, yeah. On a steroid cycle, 100%.
Okay.
100%. I mean, a real chance of that. A lot of these guys are impotent. They're taking a lot of gear and they've shut themselves down. I mean, again, it's a fact. Whether anybody likes it or not, it's a fact.
But most people will recover fertility afterwards.
Most people will.
But it's still a real risk.
I'd estimate maybe 10% of people won't recover.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
If they've done a lot of cycles. Look, the average period a person will use a cycle is about 22 years. So if you think you're 20 and you start taking steroids, and by the time you're 40, you're not going to stop. So that certain drugs like Trenbolone and the orals are riskier to take for fertility than, for example, just testosterone. They have to be seen on what they're taking. If you're a competitive bodybuilder, I mean, a lot of them, do have fertility issues. They will have them. These things happen. On TRT, again, because people are generally older, we would not want to start giving 25-year-olds TRT. It's just not right. At the same time, we've got to look at why these underlying issues are, which most times you'll find out it's self-inflicted.
So we've talked a lot about testosterone, but if we could zero in on I'm guessing other steroids like Deca and Winstrol, similar effects to testosterone,
yeah,
right?
T3, the more the insulin.
Okay.
Some of the SARMs.
Yeah.
The very popular SARMs are people think there's no side effects. Completely wrong.
Okay. So let's go into SARMs then.
Yeah, okay.
How do SARMs differ? But what is a SARM?
SARMs are the known as selective androgen receptor modulators. They're synthetically made, usually oral, and they increase testosterone levels, very similar to testosterone.
But they're not actually a steroid.
It's classified as a SARM. I mean, under a bracket, it's a performance-enhancing drug. That's the overall bracket. Then they have subsections in that. The problem with SARMs is we have a lot of data on testosterone and other steroids, how they affect you, your heart, your health, your blood, long-term conditions. We don't have much data on SARMs. They're relatively new. Also, SARMs are illegal, full stop. So they're made not in full clinical labs.
So you can't get them under prescription?
No, not at all. Nowhere in the world. SARMs are taken with the view that they're less harmful than steroids. In fact, the data show the exact opposite. Okay, it shuts you down like testosterone. It can raise your estrogen like any other steroid. It can shut you down for a lot longer, and it can cause
when we say shut down, like fertility-wise,
fertility, and also your own testosterone. When you take anything exogenous, your body stops producing it.
Okay.
In very simplistic terms, so your recovery can take a lot longer with SARMs. Rad 140 is a very popular SARM. In my view, if you're going to take it, you want to take testosterone. At least we have data about testosterone. We know how to manage it properly.
The devil, you know.
Yeah, and it's safer, cleaner. In a SARM, we don't essentially know what it is. It may be that, it may be something else. Also, from the data, the long-term SARM usage is definitely more dangerous or has more side effects than long-term testosterone usage. So within that bracket, within the SARMs, you've got other additional things. So you've got SARMs on one side, you've got peptides. Now we know the famous, Joe Rogan called it the Wolverine protocol, BP 157, TB 500, great for injuries, great for inflammation. Do we have any long-term data on any long-term side effects or not? Not really. Not concrete. We know it's very safe, but do we have some real sort of like 40, 50-year-old data? No, we don't. A lot of the studies are done on rats, rabbits, animals. Doesn't really mean much. There's one study, for example, that TB 500 increases cancer. But if you analyze that study, the dose given to the rats was 2,000 times a human dose. Anything 2,000. I'm sure if you had 2,000 times the amount of caffeine, that'll kill you.
Well, that's it. It's like the what's the artificial sweetener that they said causes cancer, but they were giving aspartame.
Aspartame, huge.
Yeah, they're giving
doses,
rats huge doses.
Yeah. So a lot of this stuff, it's like very similar to creatine. Now, there's a study which is done on animals, and these mice were put into a maze, and those who were taking creatine, they found that they apparently were finding their way quicker. So now creatine is like a neuro protective compound because the industry is fantastic. It has great cognitive ability based on this study. We haven't seen studies in humans yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that hasn't been proven in humans.
Not completely, no, because when we're looking at it from a science point of view, and you could argue that science is pointless. I'm the first person to say this, that maybe all this science is shit anyway. The Marvin Hagler, the Sugar Rays, none of these guys had sports scientists behind them, and they were fantastic athletes. The boxers in the 80s that ate steak, bread, potatoes, and they fucking performed at the old Olympians. Remember, there's still a few records which haven't been broken, and they've lasted a long time without the sports science, without the sports psychology, without they just went out and they did what they did. Someone like Mike Tyson, the first 3 years of his career, I mean, you didn't need the sports scientist to produce Mike Tyson. That was something phenomenal. You look at some of the old tennis players, absolutely phenomenal athletes without sports science. Usain Bolt, look at his diet, mainly fruit, chicken nuggets, not your standard sportsman diet. We're not going to knock him for it because he broke records. So sometimes is sports science actually detrimental to progression? I don't know. The athlete who pushes the boundaries, even with steroid use, the people are pushing the boundaries. We're learning because they're pushing the boundaries. So should we knock them? Not really. The people who did the first cross-Atlantic flight, the fastest car in the world, the fastest motorbike, lots of people died in the process. People climbing Mount Everest, people died in the process. We don't knock them, and when bodybuilders die, we slaughter them. So it's a different connotation, but we'll rip them apart. This guy died through drug abuse.
That's a very good point, actually. In other realms, we talk about these people that are martyrs that sacrifice their lives to see how far they could go in an endeavor. We call them pioneers.
Yeah.
We applaud them. But with the bodybuilders, we call it abuse. We say, it was stupid for them to be taking, it was taking illegal toxic substances.
Yeah.
It was. We look at it as delinquent behaviour or
Yeah,
morally
I think
wrong.
the problem with the bodybuilding, because there is a delinquency in that it is typical drug abuse habits. It's typical addictive, personality disorders, body dysmorphia.
Mm.
Whereas someone's trying to climb Mount Everest, it's a huge physical achievement.
And it's done off of their own back
Yeah,
rather
here
than
you
let me
just
see how much of this substance I can
yeah,
take.
you're just taking a lot of gear. I mean, if you take out the drugs out of bodybuilding, let's be frank about this. There is no bodybuilding, is there? I mean, natural bodybuilding, it's excellent, but nobody wants to do it. No one gives a shit. The world's strongest man, if he was not taking anything, who'd want to watch World's Strongest Man?
They'd be lifting
No.
a lot less
The
weight.
guy's lifting 20 kg more than me. Who cares? It's not exactly impressive. So these factors are quite critical. That we expect these guys to perform at a certain level. We expect Mr. Olympia to be ripped, massive, shredded. He has to look like an anatomy man. That's what we want to see, man. That's what we're paying to watch, which will lead to people dying. And then you were asking about other drugs. So when we look at, for example, insulin, extremely dangerous. It's just taken the standard in bodybuilding.
Insulin's taken as standard.
Yeah, within a certain
and
level,
why are people taking insulin?
you can process. It shuttles more nutrients to food faster.
Okay.
So insulin, the use of growth hormone, the thyroxine, T4, the use of certain peptides, the use of cutting drugs in a ripped state. A day or two show day. That's probably the unhealthiest a bodybuilder would be. Extremely, on paper, it's extremely risky. In percentage of how many people take steroids to how many die, it's not a huge amount.
Okay.
It's not actually a huge amount. So in Britain in 2022, we don't have 2023 figures yet, directly or indirectly, 166 people died related to steroids.
Related to steroids.
Yeah. Now, statistically, it's also very hard to prove because if you have a heart attack, on your death certificate, the coroner will write cardiac arrest. They won't write cardiac arrest induced by anabolic steroids.
Okay. So, yeah, it's hard to really draw the
because
correlation.
in one of the studies, it showed only one person died. Now, so these are very complex ways of getting the figures. But what we do know is indirectly, this amount of people have died. Where we know the data, we do know from data, if you get a heart enlargement, a thickening of the heart, if your heart ejection rate drops below 44%, that's permanent damage to your heart.
If what drops below?
The heart ejection rate.
Okay.
We know that, we get that from an echo. We know that's permanent damage. That's going to be that is, you've cut a certain number of years off your life. We know that. With some of the more extreme peptides, and we don't have much data about them at all, they can give you some horrible side effects, which we don't know huge amounts about them.
What kind of peptides are those?
There's all sorts of peptides. I mean, there's dozens of peptides. There's possibly 300 peptides out there currently. I did a course on peptides in Germany 10 years ago. There were 14 peptides we were looking at. To this day, only those 14 we have data on. We don't have much data on lots of, and you can argue again that, well, who gives a fuck about data? But what I want to see is that 10,000 people took this or 5,000 people took this. This is the effects they had, and this was the side effects they had, and we know how to manage it. Because we just don't know the long-term effects of it. Now, getting blood tests is all well and good. If you're not getting diagnostic scans with it, it's pointless. So within the bodybuilders, for example, if you look at without naming names and being respectful, the last few who've died, they had a common enlarged heart, enlarged spleen, kidneys weren't functioning right, some liver damage. Liver damage tends to be less so because the liver can repair itself. A lot of scarring, and this is a common factor amongst a certain ilk of bodybuilders who pass away.
So all these bodybuilders passing away, would you say, because they're taking steroids, or downstream? But is it the steroids themselves, or is it the downstream effect of the steroids enable them to get them?
It's the high doses.
Okay.
Because we are not looking at TRT here. We're looking at, exceptionally way more than any medical dose ever was. And I mean, look, there's bodybuilders who've taken between 5 and 9 grams a week, maybe even more. I mean, the plates and dates, there's people on them. Some guys are very honest. For example, Mastron, you have to take 1,500 Mastron to 2,000. You have to. And like with any drug abuse pattern, people do lie. So when we have these guys saying, oh, I'm on TRT, no, you're fucking not. your 600 tests a week and 400 tren and 200 anavar isn't TRT. But we live in this era now.
Is it the substances themselves that are
It's the
causing it,
interaction.
or is it because those substances are enabling them to get so big, and because they're so big, it's putting stress on the body?
You have like an enlargement of the heart. There's actually one which is, so you have a natural enlargement of the heart. So if you look at, for example, endurance athletes, they'll have a slightly larger left ventricle. What they don't have is what the body is thickening of that left ventricle as well, which is androgenic. It's androgenic anabolic thickening of it. It can only be caused by steroids, by nothing else. There. Now, if they lower the doses, in some people it will go away, not many. So the 633 people, European Institute of Cardiology, 2022, looked at 633 people, and of those, 71% had enlargement, and within that 75%, 62% had extraordinary thickening. When they came off all of the gear, 11% mutually, that the ejection figures improved, which still left around about 70% or 61% or 51% of people who've been left with permanent damage.
Okay.
Now, to what extent? Because we'd have to monitor them every year to see if they're going to die earlier. Because the study's been done, they've forgotten realistically. We don't know. It's not a longitudinal study over 25 years. So in America, a chap called Abbott did some longitudinal studies on long-term use. And something like 74% of long-term users had serious side effects, from a stroke to a heart attack to permanent infertility, permanent impotence.
Right.
Okay.
But here now we're talking about real steroid abuse compared to TRT.
Exactly. So so these people had long-term consequences to their use. What my view is, we are about to start. We've just entered an epidemic phase of illness from steroids. I'd argue this. I mean, the data again doesn't lie. Every single hospital will see people coming now with ailments related to steroids. The National Health have made a point about this. Every private doctor, physiologist I know in this business, they'll also tell you the same. So we have a lot of education on steroids. Has it made any difference? No. I've had a 15-year-old where his dad's been giving him D-bol. This kid is fucking huge. No 15-year-old should be that big. I mean, he's ridiculously big. He's already got health issues. I've also got another guy. He's been on steroids for 2 years and he's 17. The highest use for young people taking steroids in Wales and for the rugby.
Really?
Yeah. And what you've had is UK doping will tell you kids are selling D-bol at school for like £1 a tablet, £2 a tablet.
Wow.
So there were about 45 cases of schoolboys last year.
How many, sorry?
45.
Yeah.
Of school kids taking steroids.
Wow.
Now in America, they figure that even more because America, college football is huge.
Yeah, they take sports in school a lot more seriously.
Extremely serious. So in America, it's estimated as many as 50% of kids in the junior American baseball, basketball, and American football are taking steroids. Australia, studies have shown that 14 to 16-year-old girls are taking anavar for that beach look.
Because it shreds you out.
Well, it gives you the bum and the shoulders and it cuts you down a bit.
Wow.
So there's another thing we call this Red Bull and crisp diet. So you've got girls, and I've seen this myself, they have Red Bulls, a couple of packs of crisp a year and don't eat. Have one protein meal or protein shakes, but they don't actually eat. So these are all the detrimental parts of it. Is there any positives for that sort of usage, high doses? No. But we're also adults. If you want to do it, why shouldn't we be allowed to do it? I can go out and get a couple of grams of coke illegally, do what I want. No one's going to stop me. And the same issue with this. And again, let's compare it to coke. If you go to a doctor and say, I take cocaine, what will the doctor do? The doctor will say, grind it low, give you a nasal spray, give you some Xanax, go to sleep when you've done your session. Where do you go for steroids? Now, other serious factors, life insurance companies will ask you now, have you ever used anabolic steroids? And if you have, it can be extremely hard to get a mortgage. Certain employers now will ask you, because it isn't the use is so common. It's not a taboo anymore. This isn't the 80s. So when we've done a survey of 142,000 people, the biggest survey ever fucking done. It's a lot of people. It took 5 years of users, their cycles, their history. It's a longitudinal study of how it's gone on, the whole data we've done. And it's very interesting, that data is. So within that, you've got characteristics of people. You've got you only live once type of guy. I'll just chill. I'll do what I want. Then you've got the more sensible user, where the authorities now, the CQC, etc., what they're looking at now, Instagram, especially New York, the social media companies are being taken to court. You put these before and afters on. You're affecting people. All of these people talking about their cycles, what they're doing, because the youngsters will get influenced. But nobody gives a shit about, for example, your health. If you make a post about this is a cycle, it gets the most likes, most followers. And that's the sad reality of the business we're in.
Just going to adjust your mic.
Sure.
It's just catching a bit, so I'll pop it just on your jacket there. I do want us to return to the morality aspect of it, especially in regards to sports. But just to finish off the point on the different performance-enhancing drugs, their benefits and risks, I think the one that we haven't really touched on much yet is growth hormone. Growth hormone benefits and risks, dangers, side effects.
Okay, growth hormone. The biggest risk for growth hormone is it's believed. It's not conclusively proven, it's believed. Some data indicate if you have a cancer, it'll accelerate your rate of cancer. That's one thing. If it's a vascular cancer, particularly, it has a blood supply. Number two, you have a higher chance of having tendon injuries and muscle tears with growth hormone.
A higher chance of having tendon injuries and muscle tears?
Yeah.
By taking growth hormone?
Contrary to we believe it's going to help repair tendons.
Why is that?
Because it's believed, the data, there isn't a huge amount of stuff on this, but it's believed that your tendons aren't vascular, they have a very minimal blood supply.
Yeah.
So your muscles get a lot stronger, but your tendons don't. So you'll fill up more.
Right. So your muscles are capable of producing more power, and then your tendons aren't capable of supporting that. And
growth hormone on its own doesn't do much for you. When you take it within a cycle, so there is I don't believe growth hormone increases your performance. I don't think it does. It'll increase your recovery, better sleeping, directly, not your performance. Indirectly, yes.
Indirectly?
Yes, indirectly it does. Now, growth hormone is also called water retention. So your hands will feel like you've got carpal tunnel syndrome. Your feet may feel like this. And we know that if you lower the dose, the symptoms go away. 10 IU a week is a therapeutic dose as a maximum. All the data concludes 10 IU doesn't have any long-term side effects.
And you say therapeutic use, what would people be taking growth hormone for?
Better sleep, better recovery, better cell repair, better skin, better hair, lots of different things. But it's not cheap, growth hormone.
It's that's my understanding. Yeah. It's more expensive than testosterone.
A lot cheaper, yeah. So most of the growth hormone is underground. It's from China or other countries, Turkey, for example, India, Pakistan, Iran, but it's not cheap. So up to 10 IU, there's not much evidence which shows that it's actually harmful. And remember, these are new phenomena. 90s it started, really.
Okay, so growth hormone came about a lot later than steroids.
A lot later, yeah, a lot later. So certain bodybuilders have never even used growth hormone. They don't believe in it. And it's extremely expensive. The side effects aren't huge. I suppose you could call a cancer fairly seriously. You know, if it accelerates your growth, it can cause you water retention again, which can be quite uncomfortable, and these carpal tunnel type of syndromes there, and obviously more tears and more injuries. At the same time, it can also prevent tears and injuries on a low dose, because now that 10 IU a day, a week, this is what we're looking at a wellness dose. Bodybuilders aren't taking that.
Right. So they
may be taking 10 a day.
The risk of tendon damage and muscle tears are when people are abusing growth hormone.
Yeah, like with everything. So if you take most Anavar, 10 mg a day was given to people who had HIV to stop muscle wastage. But the bodybuilders aren't taking 10 mg a day. So certain drugs will affect your HDL, which is your good cholesterol. That's the cholesterol you need to fight the bad cholesterol. So all of these things have to be looked at like an umbrella view. They're all good for you in one sense. Chicken's great for you, but if you're like eating 15 kg a day, it's not so good for you. So when you put into perspective of having like a steak a day and having like 20 kg of meat a day, this is how you could compare the dose of steroids.
The dose makes the poison.
Yeah, this is what kills you, and it does kill you. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
If you take enough of it, if you abuse
steroids will kill you long term. If you take a lot of high doses, you'll shorten your life. You'll have permanent health problems, psychological problems. You will have them.
If you, I suppose I'm asking quite a general question now because it's going to be different for different drugs. If you do the statistics show if you're taking therapeutic doses, whether it be of TRT, GH, peptides, are these things going to increase your longevity in life or decrease on average?
We don't know yet. So this theory that we're going to make the guy who lives to 150, let's fucking see it. Is my view on longevity is different to everyone else's, I think. My view is you want to be as healthy as you can and as fit as you can until you die, whenever you die. You know, do I believe we'll have a guy living to 150 in my lifetime? No. That's what I think. If you do, it won't be nothing to do with these drugs. There'll be someone in a village in Pakistan or in India or Iran or Japan or Mexico.
Oh, that's it. When you look at the blue zones, these people are taking, their TB 500 and BPC 157.
It'll be someone who's happy, stress-free, has got a good social network around him, family, friends, and he's living a relatively simple life.
Or I think, and obviously my opinion is not going to be anywhere near as nuanced as yours, but I think if we start seeing people living to 150, more than them being really healthy 150-year-olds who have taken care of their health, taken all these different supplements, I think it's going to be because surgery and modern medicine progressed enough where we're just able to keep these people alive.
Look, I mean, the theory, if you could regenerate your kidneys, okay, you could regenerate your vascular system. There's a theory. If you had a tiny device which just went into your arteries and chomped up all that cholesterol and took it out, you have a way of cleansing yourself. In theory, yes. I mean, it's all theoretical. In theory, yes. If you could grow through your own DNA, a replica of your own kidneys. So as your kidneys are going, you put your own kidneys back in. Then all these things are possible. It just takes money. So when these billionaires are doing this, they're doing this to become trillionaires. The reason they're investing so much into this and stem cell therapies and these various fantastic modern therapies now, there's all sorts of things you can do. There's injections for, you name it, what can't be done now. It's phenomenal. I mean, I've seen a pro jiu-jitsu guy, hands completely crushed, couldn't do this. 100 grams of stem cells, the guy's moving. Now that's a lot of money. It's 100 grand for most people.
Yeah.
Now if you've got to have this every 5 years, but for him, I mean, his hand is completely functional.
Yeah. So if you've got the money, it's worth it for you, right?
It's worth it. Yeah. Can we put this into organ health? Possibly, yes, but not in my lifetime. You know, what that 150, where we'll see people living at 150, we'll see rich people living at 150. Nobody wants to see a taxi driver at 150 or a bus driver, but the billionaire will fund himself, he'll do it. It won't happen any other way. And this is this sort of fantastical type of dream of, I mean, do we think the system, I hate that word, the matrix, but whatever out there, they want your average Joe Bloggs living at 150. No, they want to live to 150. That's why we have not a two-tier health, we have a triple-tier health. One for the elite, who have access to everything. Things you've never heard of, they've got access to. You've got that. To keep them alive, everyone else can bugger it.
Say triple tier. What's the
you've got this, what we call, you know, the sort of stuff I do, the new longevity things we do. They're expensive, they're not cheap. So they're having full body diagnostics every 3 or 4 months. They're on various peptides, they're on longevity protocols. They're on all sorts of things. And that's what's keeping them healthy Yet you want to compare someone who's not doing it. So that data we just don't have. So the new generation science now for longevity, it's at the Joe Rogan will talk about this therapy or that therapy. What he doesn't talk about, that it might be 250 grand twice a year.
Mm.
So this is only for people who've got the resources to do it.
Let's go into the morality of all of this. I mean, if you're not competing in any sports,
look, morality,
then it's your own sovereignty, right?
I'm actually writing a paper on this issue of morality now. And it's an interesting concept, morality, isn't it? Because what's moral for you may not be for me. What is within your guidelines or your circle of what it's allowed to do may not be for me. Now, the argument is this: there's one thing of a cognitive dissonance, that people are taking these drugs, it acts as a gateway to other drugs. Now, there are studies out there where some people, and it's wrong, that if you take steroids, I mean, there's one study, if you take steroids, you're more likely to be a rapist, for example. I mean, that's how far they've taken this.
Is there any data to support that?
What you'd have to look at is like 100 plumbers and 100 builders and 100 carpenters and 100 teachers. You know, you can't just say for the normal population, yes, there's more sexual deviance, if that's the word, or promiscuity within the bodybuilding world than other worlds. Doesn't mean anything. It's
right. Okay, you need to have a study where you're examining.
Look, for example, there's a figure which I pulled out just to show the nuances of this. That more plumbers die of heart attacks than bodybuilders. Like, it should be banned plumbing.
Is that actual data?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Now, when you look at the other factor of it, within a particular age group, the lifestyle, other things. I mean, you can make up a study for anything if you want.
It's hard to control.
Yeah,
all the variables.
you can prove any point you want. I could prove that you're 7 feet tall. I could actually prove that in a study. You may not be, but I can definitely make up a study to prove it. Because we could argue why it's a foot in the first place. You know, there's all sorts of things you can put.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah,
like
you'll publish. We live in an era now. You pay to get published. You can publish.
It's a business, right? Science is that fair to say? Science is a business.
Science is a business. Education is a business. It's all bullshit as well. I mean, half the stuff I learned is pointless. It doesn't mean anything in the real world. You know, there's no purpose. We've forgotten more than we remember. So what's the point of it? And science is transient; it just changes rapidly. So there's that side of it. Now, there's an argument that are you cheating against nature? Are you cheating against yourself? So that can be argued fairly well. So when people have a haircut or you trim your beard in a certain way, you're doing it because you think you like it. So that's, it's a futile argument. If you're not competing, who are you cheating? Who are you cheating with?
Well, that's it. If you're not competing in a sport, well, my personal opinion is it's your own sovereignty. It might not be good for you, but I'm a big fan of you should have the ability to put in your body
what you want,
so long as it's not directly harming other people. And that's where it gets into a grey area.
Well,
you're going to do cocaine, and whenever you do cocaine,
Portugal
you beat
and
your
Spain,
wife.
for example, Portugal. Yeah, and this is the thing, because alcohol is the biggest inducer of child abuse, of wife beating.
Well, there we go. That's the argument, right?
Completely detrimental.
If you're going to ban other things, you need to ban alcohol.
Yeah. How many weed heads, actual, dopers, they're not violent, they're great. And I used to do doors for the raves back in the day at university. Those Eid nights were fantastic. There was no violence. Everyone loves each other. Everyone hugs. It was great. I mean, there was 10 doormen for 5,000 people. Never a kickoff. Nice white middle class kids. Fantastic, right? It was awesome. They didn't hurt anybody. They just wanted to dance and chill. So you look at other countries with the drug legislation. It's a lot easier. So where this ethical argument, if I want you to take something, I have a right to take it. The argument then would be, well, in that case, do you have the right for euthanasia, to killing yourself? You see,
that's a whole other argument
entirely, isn't it? Within the steroid argument, these are the sort of dumb arguments because it's such a volatile subject. Steroids is very passionate. So you had Bush talking about, the American army is going to bomb Iraq like we were on steroids. The Mustang is like it's on steroids. It's, the connotation of it It just creates, when you close your eyes, you think of a guy on steroids. What do you think? You think like a monster, universal soldier. That's what you think of.
Well, like you just referenced with Bush, it's such a popular saying now, isn't it? And anybody, even people that don't know anything about steroids, I hear, a middle-aged woman that I PT last week. I'm sure she said something. It's like, oh, so and so on steroids. Like she has no experience or knowledge of steroids, but she knows what that means.
Yeah, like you juiced up. So you've got this sort of psychological connotation. So one of the questions we ask people who are 20 years old who haven't took steroids, give us an actor who you think is on steroids. And The Rock's name came up quite a lot. So the image of someone big, massive, ripped up. And then you look at, for example, the Universal Soldier, the first one, all the rest was shit, but the first one. Interesting movie. They're giving you different chemicals, they're jacking you up. Dolph, Rocky IV.
Yeah.
The American Good, the Bald Eagle, Truth, Liberty, Justice against this evil guy, Russian, blonde, massive, good-looking, on a treadmill, getting jacked up on steroids. Rocky's training out in the woods.
Well, it's such a joke, isn't it? It's like they demonized. What's his name in the movie? Drago. They demonized Drago when the Russians showed him getting juiced up before the fight, and Rocky's all natural in the woods. And Stallone was as juiced up as Dolph Lundgren was.
Rocky. We're big. My era, my generation, where we won't have anything said about Rocky. I mean, we love this guy. We went to the gym because of Rocky, and he's out in the woods, log, axe, snow. He's got his aviator jacket on. He doesn't need anything else. A woolly hat, and off he's running, doing his Rocky shit. Doing what Rocky does, and his spirit and his soul defeat, the Russian bear, who's jacked up on steroids. Who's gone. Then there's another movie I saw recently. These shitty low-budget martial arts movies, and they're jacking them up before the fight, and so you've got these connotations to it. Now, morally, if I'm not doing anybody any harm, now this is the argument the police give. Why don't you arrest steroid dealers? So these websites which are doing £1 million a month selling steroids. Why is the police not? And the argument they give, we don't have the resource, number one. Secondly, nobody is beating an old granny to rob from her to buy steroids, whether they're doing it for heroin or coke. So we need to focus on that side of it. So it's a personal crime, if you like, a personal sin. Now, within a certain bracket, there'll always be people who say, I'm not going to take anything. I'm not doing it. Fine. Yeah, that's their choice. We should have it should be legalized, my view. It should be regulated completely. There should be only authorized people with clinical backgrounds and help to do it. Then there's no issue with it. There's no issue with it at all. A sports physiologist knows more than any doctor on steroids. Okay, we've written a syllabus now, actually approved for a university on this. We've also written a training course for the medical profession. Will anybody care? Of course it won't. My guidelines or our guidelines are being used for the NHS on steroids. But does anybody care? Of course not. Okay. Yeah, but nobody cares. There's not enough resource. But we do know that more and more people are going to hospital. I'll send you some stats afterwards of actual NHS data, and the scale is like this: of more and more people in the last 5 years getting ill from anabolic steroids.
Right. So okay.
It can't be denied. The fact is there.
So there's an increase in hospitalizations as a result from anabolic steroids. And what are these hospitalizations? Heart attacks and strokes. Yeah. Okay. So that risk is real.
It's real, and
it's not. And is it? Look, that's not people taking TRT though, right? That's people abusing steroids. It's abuse steroids. Okay. Yeah. It's
TRT. Let's put that aside. We aren't getting that. And on TRT, you're being. So if you've got a kidney problem, we wouldn't put you onto TRT in the first place. If you've got a cardiac problem, we wouldn't put you onto TRT in the first place. If you've got fertility issues, you won't. No chance. No chance.
Let's move over to sport, because I think that's what I think most people will agree with what you said in terms of the average person on the street taking steroids. It's their choice. Obviously, you're going to have some people that are in favour of, we should save people from themselves and restrict certain substances to stop people from taking them. Sports is where the debate's going to be more hotly contested, more debated, where people are going to be on one side of the fence or the other more. do you think people, regardless of whether steroids are prominent in that sport or not, regardless of whether it's a drug-tested sport or not, do you think performance-enhancing drugs should be in sport? Do you think it's a quote-unquote good thing or bad thing? Do you think we'd be better off if sports were clean?
Look, we don't live in a fancy world, do we? Let's look at two things. If we think sport is fair, sport has never fucking been fair, ever. It's never been fair. Let's say I was to race somebody. To be fair, he has to be my height, so he's got to be. I'm going to say 6'6", even though I'm 6'5.5", but he's got to be 6'6". He's got to have the same ankle flexion, same foot size, same knee circumference, same shoulder width, same width of my quads, same training, same diet, same coach, same institute, and then we'd say, right, that's a fair game. It's not. Sport's never been fair. A poor guy in Africa who wins the Olympic gold. One of the guys who won the Olympics recently now, he's a sheep herder. There, another guy I read about, he had shoes made for £4,000, ergonomically designed. Sport's never been fair. You know, you've got in Britain, you've got lottery funding. These different institutes of sport, athletes are coached, and these athletes from other countries are not. Look at South American footballers, how good they are. They haven't come from any jiu-jitsu. Brazilians, they haven't come from posh clubs and coaches and seminars. They've come from the Dagestanis, hardcore training, and they still win. So sport has never been fair, so we should accept that it's never been fair. That's number one. Number two, if we have, and I'll maintain this publicly, if we have a drug-tested event, and anybody who gets caught in that should be punished, because it's not fair. Okay, you could then argue the merits of it. Someone has got better coaches to manipulate the results. Let's leave that for the side there. In non-drug tested events, there, people should be allowed to take what they want. It's their choice. Take this one more step further. We now have the enhanced games, which we're also doing some, as one of the independent consultants on it. This is the first Olympics being done. It's had funding, and people are not being drug tested. They're not being encouraged to take drugs. So Dr. Aaron is the CEO of it. It's not being encouraged to take it, but if you want to, you can. And we've written health protocols, we and several others, to keep them safe from the start to the finish. Let's take it one step further than that. This is the natural evolution and progression of sports. So if you look at archery, for example, you've got these. Take the archer who won the silver, the Turkish guy. Everyone got this, just stood there, shot it, hand in his pocket.
The meme guy.
Yeah, the meme guy. Yeah, the assassin apparently. Now, he didn't have anything flash. So I've seen some lenses. They're 3D biometric type, and it causes a focus on there. It's fantastic, and you literally put your hand towards this cross and you fire. You can't miss. I've shot a crossbow using one of these things. Never shot a crossbow in my life, but you couldn't miss the target. So we've got technology and everything now. I mean, diet. Let's have a fair sport. Give everybody the same cornflakes in the morning, chicken sandwich at night, tuna sandwich at night. Let's see how they run. So sport has never been fair. Let's not kid ourselves on that. It's this illusion that Seb Cole was actually the first time in his life he actually swore, asking about the enhanced games. And Seb Cole's a wonderful, nice chap. And he was like, oh, this is bullshit. There's a lot for Seb Cole to say this. Do athletes have the right to take drugs to win? Yes. Is it a natural evolution of sport? Yes. Is it a natural evolution of the self? Yes. Is it a natural evolution of sport? Yes. Is it a natural evolution of personal development? Yes. Is it a natural evolution of hitting targets which we humanely can't hit? Yes, of course it is. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. It's exactly, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But humans are humans. We, especially men, and without sounding a misogynist here, men have to have goals. They have to have a goal.
And we're always going to want to keep pushing the envelope.
Yeah, of course.
Get
Why not?
to the next summit, higher and higher. Yeah.
We will strive to better ourselves.
Yeah.
We've survived as a human civilization by going forward, by conquering. Alexander the Great.
It's hardwired into our DNA, isn't it?
Of course, because we have to survive and we have to move forward. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a man on the moon, and we wouldn't have had spaceships and boats. That's what we do. We'd still be living in huts.
Do you think, on the basis of what you just said, do you think all sports then should be not unregulated? Should sports be drug tested or not?
I think.
Do you think it should be open
what
season?
I think what we're going to have at some stage, we are going. See, the skillful sports are different. Like the skillful sports are different. Also, the advantages of anabolics can actually make it detrimental. If you're a squash player, you don't want a huge amount of mass on you. So there's different drugs for different purposes. To raise red blood cells, you might have to take a drug to give you more oxygen to a better endurance. But I think what we'll have in the end, we'll have two tiers: drug tested and non-drug tested in every sport.
Do you think that's how it should be? You should have a drug tested version. I think
this is the natural conclusion of this. Because if you're going to see a guy doing 100 meters in, let's say, sub-9, maybe it's not possible, but you'd pay for that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd pay to watch that. And that's where it ultimately comes down to who's paying fucking what for when. If Netflix put up £5, 1 billion people around the world will pay to watch that. That's what we like. Freak shows. We want to see the fastest guy on a mile.
I mean, it goes back to gladiators in ancient Rome.
Yeah. One of my clients
is the entertainment, the highest level.
One of my clients is a motorbike stunt guy. Phenomenal. So he's done this ridiculous jump. He's got balls of steel, this guy's, where he's sort of done a triple thing. Then he's held the back of the bike. It's come and he's got back on it and he's gone across this bridge. Balls of steel, this guy. Now, if he jacked up on certain things to do that, then he's done it. Because I'd like to see you do it, or anyone else do it, or me do it. Right? So we're humans. We will strive for that, and we will risk ourselves to get things done. That's the nature of it. Anytime someone's on the mat in jiu-jitsu, someone's got your neck, you could break your neck. It doesn't stop you doing it. Fact. And some of the injuries in jiu-jitsu are horrific. It's not going to stop people doing what they're doing. So, yes, they should be, because we don't want, there is some violence attached to it and some brutality attached to it and some detrimental things of anabolic steroids, the psychosocial side of things. There's a lot of dysmorphia, there's a lot of anxiety, social anxiety, personal anxiety, sexual anxiety. All of this comes down to, the worst storied abuser, he had 1,000 things wrong with him. And the industry doesn't want to talk about it. If the industry was that concerned about their health, they would do compulsory drug tests for every athlete. They would do compulsory heart checks, CT checks. They don't care because it brings money in. That's the reality of it. The sponsors don't care because their supplements are being sponsored by drug users. They don't care. The Arnolds, it's a massive show of drug abusers, in brackets, for drug abusers and for potential drug abusers. It's the only show on earth which is like this. You couldn't have a cocaine conference or a heroin conference. You couldn't do it with athletes on there who are taking. So we should stop all this drama and we use this word impact sound like a dopey drama. It's ridiculous. The whole drama for fuck all, really. We know people are taking it. We know they're going to take it. Okay, let's help them take it safely. That's my sort of belief on this. Because you're not going to stop it, are you?
People should be able to take them. So because of that, let's make it legal. Let's make it out in the open so we can properly regulate this and take care of people that are doing it, because it's going to happen anyway.
You're not going to stop it, are you? I mean, it's considered an epidemic. It's a global epidemic. I'll give you some figures just to put up on your thing of the global rise in steroids. It's like this. Okay, and I mean, are you going to? Of course, you can't stop that. Saudi, I've been to Saudi recently. There's been quite a few deaths there. Kuwait, Bahrain, Pakistan, India. It's massive abuse of drugs. For the percentage of people using them, is it that many? And also, again, let's be brutally honest. Does anyone care about 160 deaths? Really? If 2 million people are using them, what percentage is that?
A very small percentage.
And then if you had 2 million jockeys, how many jockeys break their necks? How many boxers die? How many Formula One people die? How many snowboarders die? A lot more snowboarders die.
And then how many people everyday people on the streets
Yeah.
are getting stabbed. How
Yeah.
many men are committing
Yeah,
suicide?
exactly. Yeah.
And women, of course.
But nobody even gives a shit about that. So, you know, in the grand scale of things, you want to take something, you know, I'm not saying there's a lot of abuse out there. There's a lot of young kids taking steroids they shouldn't. There's a lot of coaches encouraging drugs they shouldn't be doing it. There's a lot of side effects, some permanent side effects. It's way past my pay grade to think out of a solution. Way past. I don't know what the solution is, but you are not going to stop steroid use at all.
On that note, to finish, with steroid use being so prevalent now, as we've demonstrated through many statistics, figures, and anecdotes you've given, what message do you have for the everyday person that's thinking about taking steroids?
Look, ideally don't. Okay. If you are, less is more, low doses, okay, make sure you have your blood tests and your heart checks first. If you're going to go on the higher doses, then, you know, we can't stop you. And people will do it regardless. I've got guys who've got serious health conditions. They are not going to drop taking what they're taking. That's up to them. You know, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I've got no issue with that. That's your choice. But on TRT, be monitored. Don't believe the hype. If it costs you another 200 quid more a year by being monitored, so be monitored. Be safe. Because when you're young, your sort of age, the world's your oyster. I mean, I remember a long time ago when I was your age, you don't give a fuck about anything. You can walk through walls, you're immortal, nobody cares. You're only thinking about 3 or 4 things, which one of them, as a happily married man, I'm not even going to mention what you're thinking about, right? But that's all that matters, really, and you know, making a bit of money. At this age now, you reflect more. You want to be safe, you want to be monitored, you want to enjoy the fruits of your labour as such, without dropping out of the heart attack and things. So just monitor yourselves, generally monitor your health, be safe.
Imran, thank you very much for this
pleasure,
conversation.
sir.
It was definitely worth doing it again.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you've shared. Just on the finishing note, where can people go to find you? And
you can go to transformnow.co.uk. We also have another website launching tomorrow, which is actually called Dr. Dick.
Okay.
Pride.com. And the reason for that is a tongue-in-cheek approach to testicular cancer, penile cancers.
Okay.
Because people don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But they do, unfortunately.
That's a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our logo is go hard or go home, which I'm sure we'll get a lot of flack. We'll get a lot of flack for it, but
it'll help lots of people.
Yeah. Because these are things which we just don't think of, but it does happen.
Yeah.
You know, these things do happen, and, you know, as you know, we're about male health, physically and psychologically and socially. No one gives a shit about men. And, you know, we need to look after ourselves. The sisters are doing it. The bros should be doing it.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
We've got to do it because it's male health is neglected. I'm not one of these guys saying go hug trees and come by yard and roll about in mud and shout, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man. I'm not into that vibe. But we do need to be a bit more creative in the way we look after ourselves, especially if we're going to be providers and we'll do everything else. We have to be doing it that way.
Yeah, I think we're at a point at the moment where we need to take care of men more than ever. Sorry.
Amen. I believe that 100%.
Yeah.